Can't everybody stop for 10 minutes? I mean, everybody seems that that's the only... Everybody can we stick... I mean, it's not that much to ask. Is that when everybody has to move when I'm trying to concentrate? I mean, that's so rude. I can't believe it. Why does everyone all of a sudden have to move? They have 2 hours to move around. Wait 10 minutes. I'm sorry to explode, my guy, but it's like no one's ever worked before. I actually can't believe what I just saw.
Radio guys who don't have time for the facts.
I heard a dial tone. And there were 7 people. I mean, we need to use the studio for 15 minutes.
You guys are off to a great start, don't you think?
Hey, buddy, I'm not paying you to hear your thoughts on life.
Well, I have a microphone, and you don't.
So you will listen to every word I have to say.
I know that you do some terrible, terrible things, and I can prove that you do these terrible things, and sure enough, contained in the package was stuff to prove that I do terrible things.
Excuse me, is that your nose or did a bus park on your face?
I just love the way you talk.
Hail to the king, baby. Don't call me stupid.
Oh, right. To call you stupid would be an insult to stupid people.
Victory is mine. Got news for you, dude.
I'll use small words that you'll be sure to understand, you warthog-faced buffoon.
The guilty pleasure offered by the existence of the Sideshow Bob is simple and understandable. 99 times out of 100, nearly every time we partake of the movable falafel feast, he serves us nothing but comedy. Farce, slapstick, unconscious self-mutilation, the Sisyphus of morons, if you will. But this is the 100th time out of 100. It is not funny at all. That's on the record and documented. Americans who deserves better than the Sideshow Bob of commentators. We all do.
Well, I think you folks have a real fine show, and it's going to be successful just as soon as people find out what time it's on.
Oh, they're terrible. They're so terrible.
Do you want them to run through it again?
No, let's just move on. We have a lot to do.
All right, here we go. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's get it on. Come on.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Terrible. What are you doing to me? You'll miss the opening. This is the most important number in the show.
This show's broken, has not even begun yet. Good. This show's unairable.
It's the Joel Oriend Show.
I can hardly wait.
Today's worst person in the world.
Joel, I love you, and please behave yourself. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my son, Joel Oriend.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Mutter, for the introduction. I do appreciate it. A lot to get to today on the show. It's going to be a jam-packed, fast-moving show. And I don't want to move too fast in this weather. I get sweaty. The bigger I get, the tougher. Not that I'm not gonna be that guy, right? That is already gonna be complaining at the end of May about the weather and that it's too hot. I'm just saying we could have maybe eased in to the warm weather. Just as I get older, I'd appreciate maybe just a little bit more of a spring so that we can slowly acclimate ourselves to the 80s and the 90s. 2 weeks ago, we were having technical issues with a snowstorm with snow on my dish here at the Farmhouse Studios. Now I'm struggling. I'm sweating. It's a sauna in here. It's a sweater box, I tell you. It's and again, like I said, it's a lot easier when you're skinny and you're young with all this heat. So listen, I'm not picky. I'm just saying if I could get someplace that was 60, 66 to maybe 69 degrees every day, no snakes. I don't want earthquakes. I don't want tornadoes or hurricanes. Other than that, I'd be fine. I mean, I'm not asking for too much, just that, because there just seems to be no happy medium. It's either snowing in 32 or it's a humid and sticky 85 or something like that. There's just nothing seems to be in the middle. I like spring. Spring to me is the transition. Spring to me is like the courtship, right? The dating period, the card and flowers of the relationship and the seasons. It's the dinner and a drink. It's getting to know the warmer weather and moving nice and slow and not, jumping right in and making any rash decisions. Let's take our time, with the weather getting a little warmer. Let's not just jump right on in, but seems like we've gone from the 30s to the 80s fairly quickly. The swamp meter in here is at about 8.6 right now, I would have to say. So we just go from one extreme to the next. But Tanner, do you have the AC in? Do you guys? You probably have central air conditioning at your place, though, don't you?
Not upstairs, just downstairs. And I'm currently upstairs in my bedroom right now. We got the fan running, but I am going to be that guy that complains about the weather. In case y'all don't know, let me put it on the record right now that I am a cold weather individual. I'd much rather it be 30 degrees than 90 degrees outside. This stuff just drives me nuts. I can't even sit in a chair stationary without sweating my rear end off.
But how can that be? Because you in winter, you are shivering because you wear shorts and a T-shirt and you get sick and you chatter at football games because you don't wear any clothes and you hate the cold, but now you don't like the heat.
I wouldn't have it any other way. I like it like that. I might suffer a little bit because of my choice of attire in the winter, and that is correct. You can catch me on a 30-degree day in December in New York State wearing shorts and a T-shirt, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I just love that kind of weather.
Wow. I would have never guessed. I would have thought you were a warm guy and you were making a statement like, I'm a warm guy in this cold weather. Doesn't bother me. I'm going to wear shorts and a T-shirt, even though it does bother me. And Joel has to give me his coat during a football game at Notre Dame Batavia. So now I'm learning it's the other way. You're a cold guy, but you just don't like to dress properly, and you're not a summer guy. So, okay, we're learning things. Okay, I like it. So that's interesting. I'm going to remind you of that the next time you dress inappropriately or underdress when we go out to do a football game or during basketball season. Before we take a break here so we can get to our first guest, why don't you go ahead and throw out Tanner's trivia question here?
Yes, so before we get into the question, I don't really want to put any of our guests on a higher pedestal than anyone else, but Doug Flutie is no small name, and we're going to be having him on the show, and our trivia question will also be tailored to him as well. So, with that said, Joel, which Super Bowl winning NFL head coach was once Flutie's quarterbacks coach at Boston College?
All right, good question. Now, wait a minute, were you making jokes and little jabs there to Doug Flutie about his height, putting guests on pedestals, no small name?
No, absolutely not. That's just how it came out. In retrospect, I did not think it was going to sound like that coming out, but I'm glad you called me out on that. No, that was not a jab at Doug Flutie. Absolutely not.
All right. I will ponder that question. Let's take a break so we can get our first guest on. Up first, Doug Flutie. We're going to talk to him about his days in Buffalo and a lot more. Then we will have the frontman of the band Twisted Sister. You know him from TV shows like Top 10 Revealed on Access TV, Breaking the Band on Reels TV. You know a couple of Twisted Sister's big hits. He's got a new song out right now. He's been in movies. He does it all. He has his own radio show, The House of Hair. So want to talk to Dee Snider about a bunch of stuff. Then we will have Joe Klein on. Joe Klein played in the NBA for 15 seasons for the Kings, the Celtics, the Suns, the Bulls, the Lakers, the Nets, and the Trailblazers. You've seen him on ESPN's docu-series, The Last Dance. Want to get his thoughts on the show and his time in Chicago with Michael Jordan. If you have a question for any of these guys, You can text it to us at 363-TEAM. That's 363-TEAM. Or email us at 921theteam@gmail.com. Alrighty, we'll be back right after this.
Courts Auto Collision.
Hi, Bill.
Never seen an insurance job we both can't make money on yet.
Bill?
And yes, I still have a free loaner car.
Bill, I just called to...
Courts Auto Collision, State Route 36, south of Canisteel, 698-9900. Online at McCourtsCollision.com.
Bill, for the first time in my life, you have left me speechless.
I am Bill McCourt.
Wow.
If you own your own business and need garbage removal, contact Lippincotts. And if you live in a town where you have to take care of your own garbage removal, contact Lippincotts. If you need garbage dumpsters, Lippincotts rents them, and Lippincotts can come pick up the garbage too. These days, you don't throw old electronic items in the trash, and Lippincotts can remove your old electronics. Lippincotts, for garbage removal, recycling, hauling, removal of asbestos or electronic items. For a free quote, visit LippinCottsRubbishInc.com. LippinCottsRubbishInc.com.
Hello, Walker Metalsmiths, this is Jeannie.
Hi, Jeannie. I'm trying to find just the right gift for my wife's birthday. How can a guy shop in these difficult times?
It's easy, just let me help you.
But I like to see and feel things before I buy them.
You can see our wide range of fine, locally made Celtic jewelry on our website at walkerscelticjewelry.com.
But what if she already has the piece I picked out? Or if it's the wrong size?
It's easy. Our return and exchange policy is very generous, but now we're making it even easier. Just talk to me, we'll work out a what-if plan, and I'll put it right in your order notes.
Thank you, Jeannie. I find it hard enough shopping for jewelry.
I've been helping people choose my dad's jewelry since I was a kid. Once I even sold a pair of earrings in the dark during a power failure. When the lights came back on, she loved them. I've had lots of practice, and I know how to make it easy for you.
At Walker Metalsmiths, we do some really difficult things and make it look easy. Shop online or call 607-478-8567.
Three wide receivers out to the right. Flutie flushed, throws it down. Caught by Boston College. I don't believe it. Oh. It's a touchdown. The Eagles win it. Unbelievable. I don't believe it. Baylor's at the bottom of that pile. Here comes the Boston College team. He threw it into the end zone. There was no time left on the clock.
We all cheered that Hail Mary throw, but then we told Flutie that it's time to go. After a brief stint with the USFL, everybody thought it was just as well, and he broke every single record in Canada. Before he came home to America.
Flutie, 35 years old. First down and 10 from the 43. In the seam, Andre Reed, touchdown, Buffalo. What a throw by Flutie.
But they still told him that he was too small to successfully pass the ball. But he proved to the league that he could survive when he led the Bills to 10-5. But in the playoffs, the owners decided that it was time to leave poor Doug Flutie on the sidelines. If only some coach had developed an offense around his style, Doug Flutie would have made the fans smile. But at NFL greatness, he only got a glance. America never gave Flutie a chance. He's in the record books now that his career is done. For the first successful drop kick since 1941.
The man without his own country for 8 years has come south of the border and electrified this crowd. Does Flutie have a pro-miracle to go along with a BC miracle? Here's Flutie rolling out, and he is in for the touchdown. Doug Flutie rolls out and in for the touchdown. He is a miracle man, I believe. Here's Flutie, backpedals in the pocket. He lets it go long, and it is caught for the touchdown. How do you like that?
And he'll score. Touchdown, Doug Flutie.
That was the best ball Doug Flutie has thrown this season. A perfect strike, right on the money. The right read to see Eric Moulds deep down the middle, and he got the ball to him in stride.
This is John Murphy, voice of the Buffalo Bills, and I'm excited to be on Oriend Nation, that is, with Joe Oriend on 92.1 The Team.
All right, as promised, Doug Flutie on the line. It's been several years since Dougie and I have chatted. Want to catch up with him. Bunch of topics I want to throw his way. Doug won the Heisman Trophy Award in 1984 as the quarterback of Boston College. Went to the USFL, then into the NFL with the Bears, Patriots, Bills, Chargers. Went up to the CFL, won multiple Grey Cup trophies. That's the CFL's version of the Super Bowl. Set a ton of records up there. He's in the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame, the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. He won Comeback Player of the Year in the NFL in 1998, was selected to the Pro Bowl in 1998. He is ranked as one of the top 100 Bills players in franchise history. The Buffalo News has him as the third best free agency signing in franchise history. And he led the Bills to playoff appearances in 1998 and 1999. You just heard some of his highlights there from college, the Hail Mary play against the University of Miami, Brett Musburger on the call, and some of his pro highlights with Van Miller and John Murphy with some of his Bills highlights. Let's bring him on. It's Doug Flutie. Doug, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. Fun memories and fun to hear Vance's call.
No doubt about it. It's one of the greatest and most memorable plays in Bills history. That was the 98 season, week 7. The undefeated Jags come to the Ralph. And that was the naked bootleg to the left pylon as you score and jump into the stands at the Ralph after a huge upset over the Jags. And, you know, you had several stops in the CFL and the NFL. You were 21-9 with the Bills during your 3 seasons as a starter. You threw 47 touchdowns. You had 5 fourth-quarter comebacks, 7 game-winning drives. And while you were only here in Buffalo, Doug, for 3 years, it felt like you were here for so much longer just because of the connection you had with the Bills fans then and now.
It really did. It's amazing to me that it was only 3 years. I went back to a game this year, actually, and the reception I got, the way I was I was hanging out with Thurman Thomas, Jim Kelly, Bruce Smith, you know, the group, the guys that are legends in Buffalo Bills history. These guys spent their whole career there. And I went back and I did a little signing up at the field house, and I had a line out the door. It was only supposed to be an hour. I signed for nearly 2 hours, and we had to cut the line off because the game was getting ready to start. And it was just a big, warm hug going back up to Buffalo and getting that reaction from the fans. You know, like you say, 3 years. I played 21 years. I spent 3 years in Buffalo, and they were special. They were just so special.
Want to talk to Doug about his foundation, FlutieFoundation.org, in just a couple minutes. If you out there, as part of Bills Mafia, have a question you would like to ask Doug, you can text us at 363-TEAM. That's 363-TEAM, or email us at 921theteam@gmail.com. I know Tanner's got a couple questions. Go ahead, Tanner. You can jump in here.
Yep. So in preparation for this interview, I went back and watched the video of the pass yesterday, and it was quite the throw, obviously. You got it from about your own 36, 37-yard line to the opposite goal line, which is quite the distance. We're talking almost 65 air yards, and it got me wondering, when your arm was at peak strength in your career, what do you think your max throwing distance was in yards?
You know, it was 68. For some reason, you know, everything I had, a perfect spiral, it would come 68 yards. But one game, we were playing Notre Dame in the Liberty Bowl at half, and I threw a Hail Mary at half, and I must have had a little bit of wind behind me because the ball it went incomplete. It actually went right through a receiver's hand, but it went 75 in the air. And, you know, it's amazing what adrenaline does in a game because the ball in Miami, I reared back, I opened up, and I threw it hard, but I threw it more of a line drive almost. Not when you're throwing for total max yardage, you kind of put a little more air on it and hope it carries.
Right.
And I really didn't think I had to throw it over 60. I thought I was throwing it about 50, 55 yards, and the ball just carried. Adrenaline is an amazing thing. Sure. It happens on game day.
On the phone with us, Doug Flutie. You can follow him on Twitter at Doug Flutie. Man, time sure does fly, Doug. It just seems like yesterday you were here in Buffalo playing for the Bills, donning that number 7 jersey, and Flutie Flakes coming out and being a huge hit all over the place. I can't believe it's been 20 years now, the 20th anniversary of Flutie Flakes. And you started Flutie Flakes, of course, to raise money for your foundation and for autism. I was looking on the website the other day, FlutieFoundation.org, and I cannot believe how big the director of inspiration, Dougie, is. I think the first time we talked, I think he was like 3 years old when you were in Buffalo here playing for the Bills. Man, he's gotten so big, Doug. He looks good. How's he doing? How's he feeling? How's Dougie these days?
Dougie's doing great. He's 28 now, and physically, Dougie's fine. Like, physically, he can do stuff. He loves getting rough and wrestling on the floor and all that. I take him out. We live at the beach. I take him out on a board, and I put him on a board and shove him into some small waves. He loves getting knocked over more than riding away. He'll get up laughing his tail off. But, mentally, as far as, learning skills, learning things, he's still got a long way to go.
Sure.
And, he's very low functioning, but he has a smile. He's got us all beat. First of all, he knows nothing about coronavirus.
Okay.
He doesn't have a worry in the world.
Right.
He just goes about and does whatever. But
Sure.
Dougie's doing great, and it's fun when he can get outdoors and do some things down here.
What one habit or personality trait does Dougie have from either you or your wife, could be good or bad, that you guys say, oh, no, he definitely gets that from you?
I think he got his energy level that I have,
Okay.
the energy level from me.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. Is he goes non-stop.
Right.
He's moving. He's nonverbal, but he's audible, and he goes nonstop. His energy level is ridiculous. He doesn't stop moving. He wants to be outside. He wants to go do this. He wants to go do that. Yeah, it's pretty cool to see him get excited about things. Like I said, when we have an activity, he does some horseback riding, which is basically just sitting and being led around. But when he does get down to the beach and get on a boat, when he gets into an activity, his energy level's through the roof, and he doesn't want to stop. So I think he gets a little of that from me.
All right, let's go to the Oriend listener line here at 363-TEAM. That's 363-TEAM. Have a message from 329. It says, "Hi, Doug. My wife and I have a young daughter who was just recently diagnosed with autism. What advice could you give to parents who just found out their child is autistic?"
Well, the number one thing is to get hands-on help right away. The one thing that amazed me, when Dougie was diagnosed back then, there weren't a lot of advocates. There weren't a lot of options. There wasn't much schooling. There was nowhere to really turn. Now. Ourselves, we just go online, give us a call at the foundation. We can point you in a direction and get you started. What amazed me was that they wanted to put Dougie in school at 3 to 4 years old, full day, and it just baffled me. But that is the way to go.
Sure.
The way the sooner you get them going, the more skills they'll retain at an early age. Like Dougie had full speech at age 2.5,
right,
and then regressed and lost speech. We really didn't know that he had an issue until about 2.5 years old. We've got our own theories on everything else. But if we'd gotten him into something before the regression started, he might have had a chance to maintain some of that. That's my point. My point is early intervention, get him started. There's a lot of help out there, and all you got to do is just ask. Go online to our foundation, to Autism Speaks, to whoever, and start asking questions right away, because the sooner the better.
So in 1985, there's 12 rounds to the NFL draft. You get drafted in the 11th round. But when I look at the draft and the quarterbacks who came out that year, you're the second best quarterback in that draft, only behind Randall Cunningham, who went in the second round to Philly. He had over 80 wins in his NFL career. Now, the other quarterbacks that were taken that year, Frank Reich in the third round by the Buffalo Bills. He went 5-15 as a starter. Steve Bono in the sixth round to Minnesota. He went 28-12. And Rusty Hilger in the sixth round to the Oakland Raiders. He went 5-9. And as I mentioned, you went 38-28 in your time in the NFL. as a starter. Now, also Scott Barry went in the 6th round to San Francisco, never played. Scott Calabria in the 9th round to Tampa Bay, never played. Paul Burner in the 9th round to San Diego, never played. Buddy Funk in the 10th round to Denver, never played. John Connor in the 10th round by Seattle, never played. Then you in the 11th round, and right after you, Joe Shields in the 11th to Green Bay. There was 4 punters taken before you, Doug. 5 punters overall, 3 kickers before you, 2 after you. So there was 5 punters taken in that draft, 5 kickers taken in that draft. And Doug, I mean, there was no quarterbacks taken in that draft. That is almost unheard of. The last time there's been no quarterbacks taken in the first round of a draft was 1988. And I think partly, Doug, that's because the game was just so different. It was, defense wins championships, build a run game, have a quarterback who's good, but you didn't rely on quarterbacks to win you games back then. It wasn't as quarterback-centric of a league. And I think if you were coming out today with these offenses, which you'd be incredible in these read and react pistol offenses with your mobility and your speed, the way clubs reach and look for a quarterback, you would definitely go much higher than you did in 1985.
No doubt. And part of that was I had already signed a contract with the USFL, and I was already playing. And so it was kind of an afterthought that I was drafted to take my rights, and then when the league folded, I came over. But your point is true. Nowadays, with the offenses the way they are, if you can get the right trigger man, you're off and running, and everybody's looking for that guy.
Right.
And they're willing to take a few risks now more so. For me, I would love to play in this style of offense. These are the offenses that we basically started running up in Canada. Empty sets, get out, basketball on grass, short passing game. Use the quarterback as a runner. Go ahead, cover down. Go ahead, go too deep and cover the receivers. You're not going to stop the quarterback run. And our version of the zone read, or my version actually, was running shovel passes. I would get out on the corner. If the defensive end came screaming upfield to take me, I'd just pitch it underneath them. There goes the back up inside, and it was basically reverse option football. But a guy named Damon Allen, Marcus Allen's younger brother, started the zone read. He started running all our run games up there out of shotgun. And Damon was really good at handing the ball off and eyeing that defensive end. If that defensive end chased, he'd just pull it and go. And obviously I saw him doing this.
Right.
And I didn't really want to run the ball as much as Damon liked to run it.
Right.
So I kind of turned that into shovel pass stuff where I draw that end upfield and shovel it underneath. And then we actually put in a route on the outside that if they blitz off the edge and both of us are taken, now you just throw the man-to-man route.
Yep.
So it became run-pass option stuff.
Right.
And Damon and I started that stuff in Canada 25, 30 years ago. It wasn't that it was X and O's and in a playbook.
Right.
Like, in the NFL, they try to make they have to have an answer for every front, every coverage, and everything is drawn up exact. Like, no, look, that defensive end comes up here, I'll pitch it to you. You know what? If he takes you, I'll get on the corner. And you know what? If the defensive back comes off the receiver and comes at me, I'll just dump the ball to you.
Right.
To the receiver.
Right.
It was just reactionary and talking about it in a huddle and figuring it out on the fly. Just instinctive football.
All right. So, Doug, you're a pretty highly motivated individual, and I'm sure during your playing days you got a lot of motivation from all the naysayers who held on to the, he's too short to play quarterback narrative. But I was curious, what were the other things that got you up and motivated during your playing career? Any other sources of motivation that you pulled from during your career?
The number one thing was the naysayers and saying, you can't do something. And that it's funny because Tom Brady and I still text each other a lot. And Tom still has that chip on his shoulder about being drafted late. You have to have something that drives you on a daily basis to keep getting better and to be good and be great. I think the other aspect for me was I grew up with nothing. I really did. I grew up, we bounced from house to house because we couldn't pay rent, electricity getting turned off, things like that, because you couldn't pay bills. I knew at a young age I wasn't going to college unless I had a football scholarship.
Right.
And I was driven early on. A lot of it is out of necessity. That's why, a lot of people in low-income housing or from that type of background gravitate to sports and are really driven and get motivated because it's their way out. And it was my way out. That was a constant driving force for me in the back of my mind. I can remember 8 or 9 years old playing Little League games and thinking that in the back of my head of, I've got to, I don't know, it was more important to me. I worked harder at it than the other kids. Winning was important at a young age, and the goal for me was always sitting out there that I had to earn a scholarship. And I remember thinking that way when I was 8, 9 years old.
Wow, that's incredible. That is a lot of pressure on a young boy, 8 or 9 years old, thinking while he's playing Little League that he needs to be good enough to get a sports scholarship so he can go to college to help his parents out because financially they're struggling and doesn't want to burden them by having them have to pay for his college. That's a lot to put on a 8 or 9 year old. So that's incredible. That certainly is a motivator. There's no doubt about it. Let's take a break here. Want to come back and ask Doug about his alma mater, the Boston College Eagles. Just like SU, after leaving the Big East and joining the ACC, Boston College has struggled to get into the top 25 in college football, just like the Orange. Those two schools had some incredible battles in the old Big East, SU and BC. Want to get Doug's thoughts on Boston College getting back into the top 25. Also want to talk to him about, what was that one thing I wanted to talk to him about? The quarterback controversy, Rob Johnson, Doug Flutie, the 1999 season, the playoff game, the Music City Miracle, Wade Phillips. Who knows? That might come up in conversation. You never know what might pop up. Let's take a break. We'll be back. As we go to break, we'll play a song from the Flutie Brothers, one of the songs off of their first CD. Doug is on the drums. We'll be back with more with Doug Flutie on 92.1 The Team right after this.
With some recent revisions, our certificate sale is still going on. Save up to 50% off your favorite restaurant or local business. Pay online and we'll ship the certificates to you at no extra charge. Go to www.921theteam.com and click on Certificate Sale. Buy the certificate you want and request that they be shipped. Let us help you save money. And thanks for listening to 92.1 The Team.
I am a non-attorney spokesperson representing a team of lawyers who help people that have been injured or wronged. If you've been involved in a serious car, truck, or motorcycle accident or injured at work, you have rights, and you may be entitled to money for your suffering. Don't accept an offer you get from an insurance company until you talk to a lawyer. And we represent some of the best personal injury lawyers you can find. Tough lawyers that will fight to win your case. And they're so good they stake their reputation on it by only getting paid if you win. So if you've been in a serious car, truck, or motorcycle accident or hurt on the job, find out today for free what kind of compensation you may be entitled to. Call the legal helpline right now.
800-791-4478. 800-791-4478. 800-791-4478. That's 800-791-4478.
In 1998, I was ready to retire, and Buffalo came knocking, and I thought, what the heck, let's do this. I'll play 2 years, call it quits, and let's get the heck out.
Doug, a lot of people say that you're just too short to play in the NFL. How do you address that issue that comes up again and again?
All I know is I've played the game at my height all my life. All right? I know no different. That's all I can ever ask for is the opportunity to go out and compete, and that's what I believe I'm getting here in Buffalo.
First down and 10 across the 50. Here's Flutie with a play fake. Carlos Emmons coming. Flutie goes deep for Moles. Got him in stride. Touchdown.
Flutie collected Pro Bowl and Comeback Player of the Year honors, along with a new contract.
This week, as far as quarterback's concerned, I'm starting Rob Johnson, with Doug being the second quarterback.
I love Wade Phillips. Wade was one of the most enjoyable head coaches I've ever played for. It wasn't Wade's decision.
Johnson was sacked 6 times and completed only 10 passes, none for touchdowns.
You know, in hindsight, you know, Doug probably would have won the game. So, you know, that's kind of the way we look at it.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It is the Joel Oriend Show, 92.1 The Team. Found this bed this week. It was called the Tutti Flutie, so I thought it was appropriate. I don't think it has anything to do with our guest, Doug Flutie. Might have to do with having a flute instrument in the song, but I thought it would be a nice little fit. Well, you just heard that montage right there. Doug comes from the CFL to the Bills. Bills make it to the playoffs in 99. Management, Wade Phillips, decides to sit Doug Flutie and start Rob Johnson. The Music City Miracle happens. And then the next year, Bills go 8-8. Wade Phillips is fired. Doug goes to San Diego, and the Bills go on a drought until 2017 when they make the playoffs again. Before we get to the Music City Miracle with our guest Doug, I want to talk to Doug about his alma mater, because just like mine, the Syracuse University Orange, the Boston College Eagles have been in a drought and have struggled on the gridiron for the last several years, to say the least. And these two teams used to be really good in the old Big East. Boston College, Syracuse, Pittsburgh, West Virginia. The Big East was really tough back in the day, but neither BC or SU have fared very well after going into the ACC. Doug, am I crazy to think that SU and BC could be top 25 teams?
There's no excuse why BC can't be a top 25 team. They can be very competitive in the ACC. Obviously, Clemson is a step ahead of everybody right now, but there's Clemson and everybody else.
Yeah.
BC is usually good when they have a good offensive line, are able to run the ball, and they got a trigger guy at the quarterback position. This year, we picked up Phil Chukovic from Notre Dame as a grad transfer, big, strong-arm kid that has a real shot of being the guy. Hafler came over from Ohio State as a defense coordinator, and he's a new head coach. There's a lot of optimism right now at BC going into this year. And then you don't get to go, then a new coach comes in, you don't get to go through spring practice because everything that's going on.
Right.
So that's, going to set them back. So it's going to be a little transition, a year or two probably to get it rolling now, but there's a lot of optimism right now at BC, and I really believe, and Syracuse as well. I don't get it, that Syracuse and BC were so competitive for so many years. I remember those Big East days, and you talk to Danny Marino and all the guys that have come through, back then. And there's no excuse. There can be things like, you look at an SEC team and you say speed, and there's some things that set certain conferences apart.
Right.
But when you talk ACC football, there's no excuse not to be competitive in there.
On the phone with us, Doug Flutie. You can follow Doug on Twitter at Doug Flutie. If you have a question you would like us to ask Doug for you, you can text us 363-TEAM. That's 363-TEAM or 921-THE-TEAM at gmail.com. Doug played in the USFL, CFL, and NFL for 21 years. You got to be pretty good if you can last 21 years. And Doug, I always felt you and I were kindred spirits. I rooted for you no matter what league and no matter what team you played for, because I can really relate to you. You always had to prove everybody wrong. You had to work harder than anybody. You had the naysayers and the negative Nellies that said you couldn't play quarterback professionally because of your height, and you always had to prove them wrong. And I have a disability, a physical challenge. New York State considers me legally blind, so I say I'm illegally sighted. And while I think people mean this in a positive way and as a compliment, when someone says to me, man, you're really good for someone who can't see, or man, you do a pretty good job for, having a disability. Like, I get what they're trying to say, but it doesn't feel like a complete compliment. So let me ask you, if you had your choice, if an analyst said Doug Flutie is an okay quarterback, or Doug Flutie's a decent quarterback, or Doug Flutie is a really good or great quarterback for not being tall, which one would you rather have them say?
No, you don't want the qualification of being for a short guy, obviously. You want to. It's amazing to me. Played at college, and you come through college. Shoot, my junior year was third in the Heisman. My senior year, I win the Heisman.
Yep.
And then you go into pro football, and they want to quantify everything. And it's a shame that, like we were talking about with offenses, that I didn't get an opportunity to run a real spread-out type offense. We did a little bit of it when I was in Buffalo, and we had some success spreading it out. I put my arm strength up against pretty much anybody that plays the quarterback position has the arm strength and ability to get the job done. The thing that sets people apart is the mental aspect of the game. Decision-making, getting you in and out of pass protections, getting through your progressions, getting to the open receiver, getting through your read, checking a protection to pick things up, handling all those. The mental decision-making is 90% of the battle.
Yep.
They've all, I mean, before we got on the call, I took a quick peek at the quarterback situation in Buffalo, and all three of those guys have the ability to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. What's going to set them apart, and Josh Allen, obviously, Josh is exciting, and I was getting ready to say he runs really well for a big guy. So I was qualifying him. But the thing that's going to set people apart is the mental part of the game, and that's why a guy like a Brady and a Peyton Manning can have all the success they had without being a phenomenal pure athlete.
Yep.
No
doubt about
it. That's what it comes down to. So if I'm making good decisions and I'm getting this in and out of protections and helping pick things up for the offensive line and then do my little thing athletically on the fly, there's so many aspects of being a quarterback that aren't pure. I get very frustrated with pure height, weight, all this combine stuff at times. I was texting Tom Brady during the draft, and I said, I got to turn this off. I said, the second they start measuring guys' feet and hands, I'm done. They started talking about some guy's shoe size, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You got all this film on a guy.
They're worried about what size shoe he wears.
This guy's really going to work well with our organization because we've got good size 16 shoes. Yep. Whatever. I roll my eye at all the combine stuff.
Well, I think to your point, what they don't measure at the combine is heart, willpower, determination, and those can be pretty important. Those are, intangibles that the greats have, and the others that are okay and average players just don't. Tanner, why don't you go ahead and jump on in here?
Yep, so to preface this question, I was watching Bill Belichick, A Football Life, a while ago, and Belichick was in a media conference call, and one of the media members asked him where he kept his rings, and he just said, in a box somewhere. Now, not too long ago, we had Eric Crouch on the show, who was a former Heisman-winning quarterback for the University of Nebraska, and I asked him where he kept his Heisman trophy, and his answer was more or less the same as Belichick. So with all that said, Doug, where do you keep your Heisman and some of your other hardware?
We moved from a really huge house where we had a trophy room to the beach in Florida, and we downsized some. So the trophy room is not as big, but it is in there. It's like I have it in the corner on a pedestal, and I have to walk by it every now and then to go into the garage. But when it was in the house, when it was in the big house, I never even went in the room where the Heisman was. I go months at a time without seeing it. It was like, it's over there. Then somebody would visit and want to see it, and so you bring them up. It's part of your past and what you did and your accomplishments. And the only reason I have any of the stuff out is because when people visit, they like to see it. But, you can't live in the past. It's a nice thing to think about once in a while, especially if I get back together with my BC guys and when we go back for reunions and all, you talk about things. But, you got to keep looking forward. You got to live for today and moving forward. And that's why, I hadn't been to a Bills game in 20 years.
Wow.
And I went, I'd been up to Buffalo for Jim Kelly's golf tournaments and things, charity events, all that, but I'd never gone to the stadium game. And then, every now and then when you do stuff, it was so nice. It was such a nice reception to get back and get the reaction from the fans.
So the Flutie Johnson quarterback controversy is one of the most famous in NFL history. So you lead the team to a playoff berth. It's the final week of the regular season. You guys don't have anything to play for. You're locked into your seed. So they rest you. Rob gets the start. He has a good game against the Colts. I think he was like 21 for 34 for 250, 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. And so the next week, Wade meets with upper management and announces that Rob is going to be the guy. And everybody knew inside the building and outside the building that ownership and management wanted Rob to start because he was making so much money. So I guess the weird or strange part about this controversy and why people are so intrigued is you didn't lose your job to an injury. They rested you in the final week of the season because there was nothing on the line. We've seen guys lose their job because they went out with an injury. Bledsoe, Brady, Phil Simms went out with an injury. Hostetler came in, led the Giants to a Super Bowl. Trent Green went down in a preseason game. Kurt Warner came in, led the greatest show on turf to a Super Bowl championship. Wally Pipp. There's a ton of those. But you lost your job because the team did so well, you didn't need to play in the final week of the season. You could rest going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I kind of felt, I don't know, I had a feeling. And my wife thought I was crazy. As soon as they started talking about that, going into that Indianapolis game, it was a meaningless game. It was a game where our playoff positions have been set. A lot of players were being rested, especially on their side because they had their number one spot locked up or whatever. I knew. I had that feeling, and my wife thought I was crazy. I go, back in 88, when 88, I think it was 88 in New England, similar situation. I think it was 7-2 or 6-3. And we were rolling towards the playoffs, and they wanted to play the other guy in the last game of the season because a lot of it comes down to, well, that was with Tony Eason back in the late 80s. Mm-hmm. If I finish the season as a starter, they got to pay me starter money next year.
Okay.
And a lot comes down to what people are making, and they got to get a return on investment and get a look.
Yep.
And then Rob played well.
Yep.
Rob played well in the game, and it's like, okay, here we go. Right. And I honestly thought my general, I had a bad feeling that that's exactly what was going on. But I honestly thought it was going to take both of us, and I'd wind up getting back on the field, and we were going to win no matter what. Right. I really had that feeling. Yeah. In fact, and Rob did not have a good game in the playoff game, but we were in a position to win the game. Yeah. We should have won that game, okay? And if you go on another week, and even if Rob started the following week, which I think he would have, there was going to be a moment. There was going to be something where I was coming off the bench and having a chance to be a part of it. I just really felt that team. I mean, that Tennessee team went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they did.
The Tennessee, they were a yard away from winning it all.
Yep.
So I mean, we were a darn good team.
Yep.
That's the way that all went down was a shame.
On the phone with us, Doug Flutie. You can follow him on Twitter at Doug Flutie. We have another question from Bills Mafia off of the Oriend listener line at 363-TEAM, 363-TEAM, or you can email us at 921theteam@gmail.com. This one says, Doug, did Wade or Mr. Wilson come to you and ask if you were willing to sit, or did they tell you you had to sit in that last game of the season?
Because of my experience from 1988, I knew, or I had a gut feeling that this is what was going down, and I said to them flat out, no, I want to play. No, I don't need to rest. I'm not going to, I flat out said that, but, they were going in that direction, and I don't know if that was the year. No. I actually, the year before, I actually sprained my knee in a game against, I think it was the Jets. And so the last game of the season was at New Orleans, and they played Rob. And Rob played very well in that game as well, the last game of the season. Then I went in, to the playoffs. Yeah, that was the year before. I had a little tweak in my knee, so it didn't bother me as much to sit that year. But that particular season, no, I was healthy as a horse. I was ready to rock. Let me put it this way. When I played in Canada, we would play, Edmonton was our rival when I was in Calgary, and we'd play them once in preseason. Meaningless preseason game. Now, I've won 4 straight league MVPs at this point. First preseason game, I played 4 quarters and the overtime. I was not coming out.
Man, that is hardcore. That is a lot of heart and determination and willpower and wanting to stay on the field and do everything for your teammates and your team to win. And just to kind of put an exclamation point on that, we had one of your former teammates on the show here a couple weeks ago, Steve Christie. He was your teammate with the Buffalo Bills and with the San Diego Chargers. And this is what Steve had to say.
Doug Flutie gets benched, and Doug won, 10 games? And, Rob gets the nod because he beat the Colts in a nothing, week 17 game that the Colts were in, we were in. It was tough. It was really tough. And it was really tough because I ended up signing in San Diego, and there, Doug and I were sitting against, we're sitting with each other again in the locker room going, right. Deja vu or what? Yeah. And that's when Drew Brees came in, and there's Dougie again. Like, right. Man,
yes.
What? You can't sign to these teams anymore, Doug. You got to go somewhere you can play. And he could. Man, could he play. That whole deal in Tennessee was, being an older player then, I felt that was not the right call. It was definitely not the right call for the momentum of the team at the time. The older guys that were paying attention knew that Doug had done the work. He earned the spot. He earned the right to start against the Titans. And, I love Ralph Wilson, but if it didn't come down from him, that's one thing I'd say, you know what, no. Dougie would have played very well.
So you can't get much higher praise than that from a teammate, saying you never made it about you. You never tried to divide the locker room. You were always a team guy first.
I appreciate that. And, that means a lot to hear it come from Steve and the guys in the locker room. And the bottom line is we're all in this together and we're trying to win. Yes, I would love to play that game. Yeah, you want to be the guy on the field. Everybody does. But that's, you got to realize what's best. And like I said, I still thought that I was going to be in the mix and we were going to, something would have come up where I had to play a role in helping win one of those playoff games. But I always say that's why the wives are so amazing. Because when you come home, they get the brunt. It's like, okay, I was a good guy all day long. I smiled. And then you just let loose when you're home and vent.
No doubt, a great man is always propped up with a great woman standing behind him. Tanner, you have a listener question for Doug?
Yep, so the fan question from the Oriend listener line, 607-363 team, is you made a lot of stops in your pro career, not only in the U.S., in places like New Jersey, Massachusetts, Illinois, obviously here in New York, California, but also in Canada, in British Columbia, Calgary, Toronto. And our listener wanted to know, was it difficult for you being on the move fairly frequently? Because outside of your stints with Calgary from 92 to 95 and with the Chargers from 01 to 04, you were moving around the country and even up to Canada for a bit. So how were you able to adjust to that constant change of scenery?
It was tough. It was, that again, it goes back to my wife and being willing to be on the move for all those years and do this and do that. From a football standpoint, it was one of the most frustrating parts of my career to me is I didn't get, although Canada was a little different because I maintained, once I started with a certain offense in Canada, I brought the offense with me and started putting in my own offense. Right. But the most difficult part is learning a new offense, getting the terminology down again, going into training camp and having to learn from scratch again. It started because when you build year after year on the same offense, it becomes second nature. You know it like the back of your hand. You're moving parts around on the field and instinctively. It's a reactionary thing. It just becomes so second nature.
Right.
Where I really, by my second, third year in Buffalo, I'm starting to get to that point, and then I'm moving to San Diego.
Yep.
It just, that's what frustrates me is because you see a guy like Tom Brady that got to stay with the same organization the whole way through. You do nothing but continually build on what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's just, you go into training camp and it's fun instead of, going back to school.
Well, it's definitely never easy having to go back to school. Let me ask you, before we cut you loose, where do we stand with any upcoming events with the Flutie Foundation? Are you guys going to have any events, or have you canceled the rest of the events for this year? year?
Yeah, we are going to go with an online. We usually have a gala around this time of year every year, and we're postponing it a little bit towards the fall, but we are going to do an online gala. Some other organizations have done it and had success. So we're trying to do some more stuff online. This year we'll definitely take a hit, but we will be okay as a foundation. We just went over all our numbers and everything just about last week, and everything is. We haven't felt it yet. We'll feel it at the end of this year, but in general, we're in solid ground and things are still moving forward. And if you want to be a part of it, you can be a part of it online.
Doug, listen, thanks so much. It's fun as always. We catch up every decade, every 10 years or so, and we're not getting any younger, Doug. So let's not wait another 10 years before we chat again.
Yeah, I hear you. I am talking with Buffalo about potential. I had such a blast going up there. And I made a commitment when I retired from football that if it's not fun, I'm not doing it. So I'm talking about trying to get a podcast together from Bill's games, do something with Bill's Mafia, and just to be a part of it. I really enjoyed going up there, so there's a chance I may be doing something.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Bill's Mafia would love that. Listen, Doug, I do appreciate you coming on. Continued success and health for you, your wife, your daughter Alexa, and for Dougie. Let's chat again soon, okay?
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
All righty, let's take a break. But as we do right now, if you want to win, text us at 607-363-TEAM, 607-363-TEAM. First person through will win themselves a Flutie Flakes hat or t-shirt of your choice. 607-363-TEAM. First person to text will win. We'll be right back after this.
Double L's Shooting Sports of Arkport buys, sells, and trades firearms daily. They purchase used firearms, ammo, and related estates. Handguns can now be registered. Stop into Double L's Shooting Sports today to look over their large selection of long guns, handguns, and ammo. They're open from 10 till 5 Monday through Friday, 10 till 4 on Saturdays. That's Double L's Shooting Sports, 8 Main Street.
The Maple City Dodge Sales Department is open. Your favorite guys, Gary, Larry, Aaron, Doug, and John, are back and available by appointment. Simply call Maple City Dodge and tell them you're ready for a great deal. The incentives are huge, and the sales team is highly motivated. The service, collision, and detail departments are also open. They'll pick up, service, and return your vehicle when the work is done. Call Maple City Dodge in Hornell. They're ready to get you back on the road with the real deal every time.
Hornell Partners for Growth would like everyone to know that we are thinking of you and hope everyone stays safe and healthy. We are working with our district businesses to get all necessary information out that is required to ensure a safe and healthy reopening for all employees and community consumers. To stay up to date on openings, community events, Steuben County, City of Hornell, and Hornell School District information, please like and follow us on Facebook at Hornell Partners for Growth. There you'll find a list of businesses open with current hours updated weekly and posts shared from our businesses and local officials. Please stay safe and remember we appreciate your continued support to all local businesses.
Lou, should I fire you because you're the project manager?
No, because I stepped up to the plate and I gave it all and made sure that the whole team would give 110%.
But what do? You let Lisa and Pan just take over the writing. You let me handle the box.
It's like I said before.
You proved everything. You went out shopping when we needed bathing suits and gym clothes, while the rest of us were giving Sir 120%.
D, you're fired.
The kids are back. They told her that I was bad, but she knew I was sad. That's why she fell for the leader of the pack.
Well, our next guest has been fired by our president. He was on Celebrity Apprentice 3 times, twice as a contestant, once as a guest. He has his own radio show, House of Hair. He has written a movie and starred in that movie, Strangeland. He is a voiceover actor. He does voiceover work for Breaking the Band on Reels TV, which I watch. He also is a contributor to the Top 10 list revealed on Access TV on Sunday nights. You, of course, know him from that musical montage. If you don't know these songs, you probably shouldn't be listening to this show. He has new music that has just come out, and I want to talk to him about that as well. You can follow him and keep up with him try to keep up with him. He's a busy man at dsnyder.com and on Twitter at dsnyder. D, let me ask you, where are you? How are you? How's the wife, the kids, the grandkids, everybody safe, sound, and healthy?
Yes, we are. How you doing, man? We are healthy and safe all over North and Central America. My wife and I live part of the time in Belize.
Okay.
And we are down here, and it is the country. Belize is one of 13 countries in the world that does not have COVID.
Oh.
No active cases of COVID. That's because they completely locked the country down. Can't get in, can't get out. 8 o'clock curfew. Military police arrest you on the streets if they catch you after 8. Mandatory mask wearing, $5,000 fine for not wearing a mask. Imprisonment for the second time you're caught without a mask.
Wow.
So what they did when they got a few cases, they went hog wild and just shut the country down. And they haven't had an active COVID case or death in 5 weeks.
Man.
So, but at the same time, we are on like a very, very restricted lifestyle.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because of it. So, and we can't leave the country. And our family, our kids are grown. They're in California. They're in New York. So everybody's happy and healthy so far, and hopefully it stays that way.
So with you obviously being quarantined, self-sheltered in Belize, let me ask you, what did you have going on before all of this started? What have you been doing creatively while this has been going on? What's on the docket for you once this is all over?
Well, first of all, I'm just going to start with this next statement by saying I did not have a vision or I'm not a prophet. But last year I said to my management, I'm taking off 2020 to focus on my writing. And they said, you're going to take off 2020? You're not going to? I said, I want to focus on my writing. And so everybody took off 2020. And I'm locked down, and all I do is write all day.
Okay.
So I finished my first fictional novel that's out at publishers right now. I am working on a number of screenplays, and I was supposed to be directing my first feature film, but Hollywood's been shut down.
Right.
So I'm actually working on another film that I've been approached, another horror film, to write and direct. So I'm working on that. So I'm doing a lot of writing right now. But on the music front, last year we filmed a lot of shows, and I said, well, next year let's release a live album. And in July, For the Love of Metal Live is coming out. It was filmed at festivals all throughout the world last summer, and that with this CD and the new single called Prove Me Wrong, which just came out on Napalm Records. So pre-orders now on the live album. Since you can't go to a concert, why not get Dee Snider live, put it on your big screen TV, get the kids, get a beer, and rock out like you're at a festival in your own living room.
And we'll play that new single at the end of the interview, Prove Me Wrong. It is rocking. Let me tell you, it sounds really good. I listened to it before we came on the air here. Well, Dee, you've been successful with everything you've done. Musician, writer, actor, voiceover, radio personality with your radio show, The House of Hair, TV personality. You've been on many shows. You could easily rest on your laurels and retire and kick back and just live off of all the royalties and everything. But you continue to work, release new material. What is it that drives you? Is it just that creative itch and creative urge in your personality that won't let you just kind of sit back, relax, and retire?
It really is. I just, it's my wife's incredibly supportive. She says I'm a machine. And I just like challenges. So I had never directed a movie. I wrote Strangeland and starred in it. And then I wrote this new scary screenplay called My Enemy's Enemy. And when the studio that wants to make it said, what do you think about directing? At first my brain said, I don't direct. And then the other side of my brain said, say yes.
Right.
Say yes. When do you get the chance? Just like when I was on Broadway, I was in Rock of Ages for 3 months, and I was at the premiere, and the producers came to me and said, what would you think about being in the show? And I had never acted on Broadway. And I said, yeah, sure. 2 years later, I get a call. They say, you're in the show. I said, what do you mean I'm in the show? They said, you're in. And I was like, oh, my God. The big thing I learned is just say yes. And figure it out later.
Sure.
You say yes, I'll do it, and then figure it out later. So that's how I got, here right now. Somebody said, do you want to direct a movie? And I was like, yeah. I want to direct a movie. And now it looks like I'm getting ready to direct my second movie. I haven't even finished my first one yet.
Let me ask you about this. You and your family decided to do a reality television show like some celebrities have done, like the Hogans and the Osbournes and others. And you've been on many TV shows like Celebrity Apprentice and other shows like that, and we'll talk about Celebrity Apprentice, but you had your own show with your family growing up, Twisted. And I just curious what that experience is like with the cameras and mics all the time, and was it an enjoyable experience, and what were your takeaways from doing that reality TV show with your family?
Well, first of all, I've done so many. I haven't done anything recently because, for two reasons. One, I got roasted a couple years ago with Zach Wild from Ozzy's band and Black Label Society. He got up there. He said, "D, you're surrounded by family and friends. People will love you. This is going to roast." He says, "This is a what do you call it? This is an intervention. You got to stop doing it on reality TV." And after the show, I said, you know what? I've been on virtually every show with the word celebrity in front of it. Celebrity Duet, Celebrity Apprentice, Celebrity Home for the Holidays. And I was like, you know what? You got to give it a break now. But doing your own family show, it really was, while it was an experience, the one who got damaged by it was my daughter. Life became so impossible for her. We wound up having to pull her out of school. She had to be homeschooled. And it just was, we didn't really, even though everybody was like, yeah, let's do it. And even she was 14 at the time.
Right.
She's like, oh, yeah, that sounds like fun. But the reality of suddenly having your world under a microscope and then going to school, and she would walk into the lunchroom and everybody, the entire room would just stop talking and just stare at her.
Right.
And it got really awkward for her. And then we started getting, dude, this is true. We got jail mail sent to our house. Okay, prisoners, I don't know how they got our home address. They were sending letters to my daughter.
Oh, my God.
From prison. And that was when my whole wife said, you know what, this is not something we should be doing anymore.
Yeah.
This is too putting yourself too far out there. So, so it was not we as a family were fine, but it's the outside aspect of it, the exposure that is a little too much.
So the answer to this question might change by the day, by the week, by the month, by the year, depending on what you haven't been doing or what you have been doing. But if you couldn't produce music, I know you want to rock. I love that song. But let's say writing music, producing music is off the table. What one thing would you do for the rest of your career? Because you've been so successful at a lot of things. So if you could only write, direct, act, be a radio or television personality or voiceover artist, what would you want to do?
Writing.
Okay.
Writing.
Yeah.
That's why I've been writing for years now, and and I've written a lot of different things. Some things people have seen, other things people don't even know about, things I've sold. I wrote a Christmas musical that was staged in Chicago and Toronto a few years ago. So I just like the aspect of writing is that I'm not limited by my age, by my color, by my sex, by my any of my physicalities. Sure. As long as I can put a believable character on the page, that when people read it, they believe the character. That's all that matters. Sure. So with writing, I'm forever everything and anybody.
You've been in the spotlight and the public eye for a long time. You have spoke in front of the Senate. You have been a proponent and advocate of free speech for a long time. And, you've had your fair share of naysayers, from politicians to parents. Things have certainly changed throughout the years since you've been in the spotlight with Twitter and social media. And it just kills me. These people who get upset at stuff, whether it be something on the radio or TV or music, they spend more time sending an email or writing a letter or making a call than just changing the channel. That's what I do. If I don't like a TV show, I don't call the network and tell them I don't like it. I just change the channel. I let the free marketplace determine what stays and what goes. I find it funny because the people that don't like me or my radio show, rather than turning the dial and stop listening to me and listen to something they do like, they would rather listen and then complain on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or some other social media platform, or send an email or make a phone call, complain to me, rather than just turning it. I just never quite understood that. But as an artist, when you create something, in a way, you give it to the public, and it's out there in the ether. And for a song like We're Not Gonna Take It, so many people have embraced that song and taken it and used it for their own cause, whether it's an organization or a political group or a sports team. And, there's certain artists that will be like, when you ask them, well, what does that song mean? They'll say, like Michael Stipe from Oriend or Vedder from Pearl Jam. They'll say, I don't really want to say what it means to me, because that song can mean whatever you want it to mean to you. And by me imposing my meaning ruins the song for you. And after I create it and put it out there, I no longer own that song. You own that song, and I have no right to tell you how that song should make you feel. Now, We're Not Gonna Take It is fairly obvious what the song is about and stands for. It's about not being told what to do and standing up for what you think is right, and not just laying down and being a pushover. But there are groups that have taken this song as an anthem that you agree with and that you don't agree with, such as Teachers on Strike in West Virginia. They took to Twitter and this was their anthem, and you were okay with that. Teams use it as an anthem, and you have been okay with that. There has been pro-life groups and organizations that have used this, and you have not been happy with that. There has also been politicians and political parties that have used this song as an anthem and as part of their slogan and campaign, and you have not been happy with. So as a artist, it must be difficult when you create something and it stands for something for you, and then a group or organization or individual that you don't agree with uses your song and has it stand for something you are adamantly opposed to or don't agree with.
Well, you're referencing We're Not Going to Take It, and in particular, and it was a song that was very deliberately written vague enough that it could be a beat for anybody from any side, any part. I mean, I don't know if you saw the slowed down piano version for children's cancer.
Oh.
People, have you seen that video?
No, I got to watch that.
Yeah, Chris Angel, I recorded it, just the piano and vocal, slowed down. He has a children's cancer. His son has cancer, and it went viral.
Mm-hmm.
And people couldn't believe that the song slowed down like that, took on a whole other meaning.
Right.
When we were talking about cancer,
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to take it, and the fight against cancer. So that was the spirit of the song.
Right.
And 99 times out of 100, I'd say that if whatever you believe, the song's for you.
Right.
If you want to be a sports anthem, fine. If it's for your political side, that's fine. But every now and then, someone goes over the line by my standards,
Yep.
and I at least have to disassociate myself.
Yep.
And one of the things that kills me is some of the ultra right wing. One of the things they're very they're anti-choice,
Right.
and they a lot of times they sing my song,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll call them up and say, "You do know what the first line of the song is?" And they go, and then they sing it to themselves. They go, "We've got the right to choose." Oh, wait a minute, stop using it. The first line of the song is "We've got the right to choose." And they're at these rallies going, "We've got the right to choose." I'm like, wait, is this like a parallel universe where we don't listen to the words we're singing? So, that's all I have to say.
Right.
Dude, that's all I have to say to those people, and they immediately stop using this song.
That's funny.
And I want to say something to you, man. I want to say something to you. I've been doing radio now for going close to 30 years, so I'm a radio guy. You know that.
Yep.
But Howard Stern once said something. Somebody called up, and they said, "I've been listening. I listen to you every day, and I love you, Howard." He said, "But today you were talking about blank, and I'm really upset." So now, and Howard said, "So you laughed at everybody else I made fun of, but when I made fun of you,
Right.
you're upset."
Yes.
He said, "You either laugh at all of it,
Right.
or don't listen."
Yep. There
And
you go.
I thought that was so brilliant.
Yep.
People sit there and ha, 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 when it's making fun of other people,
Right.
but all of a sudden they're all prickly when you say something that rubs them the wrong time. It's
true.
either all funny or none of it's
Yep,
funny.
that's
That's
true.
just the way it's got to be.
It's just got to be that way. So as many people know, you've been on Celebrity Apprentice 3 times, twice as a contestant, one just as a guest helping John Rich with one of his projects. You have gone on the record and said you are friends with Donald Trump. You are both New Yorkers. You have known him for a long time. And he approached you and asked you when he started to run for president the first time if he could use your song, We're Not Gonna Take It. And you said yes. Then as he started to run and roll out his campaign in 2016, am I correct? You called him up when he was talking about the wall and immigration and stuff like that you called him up and asked him to stop using your song, and he stopped using it immediately.
Immediately.
Yep.
But, again, it wasn't too tough. I said, "You know what the first line of the song is?" Mr. Trump. And he goes, "No, what is it?" I said, "We've got the right to choose." All right, stop using it. It's the word, and it's not an accident, man.
Right, yeah.
I'm very pro-choice. Yep. I'm pro-amendment. Yep. I'm a First Amendment guy. I'm a Second Amendment guy. I'm a concealed carrier.
Sure.
I believe we have a lot of rights. We should be able to choose for ourselves.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, and that includes a woman's right to choose. It's not. I'm not a pick and choose guy. Okay, I'm for that, but I'm not for your right. The same thing with comedy.
Right.
It's either all funny or none of it's funny. We're either allowed all of our freedoms or allowed no freedoms, and I believe should be allowed to choose for themselves.
I got a 2-part question for you. The first part's going to be probably pretty hard to answer because our society and culture, and certainly the musical landscape, has changed so much since Twisted Sister was put on the map and came on the scene. But if Twisted Sister were to come out today, would you guys be as popular? And the second question is, I already referenced how you spoke in front of the Senate. I believe it was 1985. You and Tipper Gore will be forever linked, as she was adamantly against and opposed your music and music like yours. And she started that whole, the PMRC or whatever, wanting to put the advisory labels on the cassettes and the albums. Do you think she actually heard her own case and made you guys even more popular and successful and cool to the kids and people in their 20s because this, stuffy politician's wife is throwing a fit about you and your music and others like you. Do you think she actually helped you guys more than she hurt you and other groups like Twisted Sister?
Okay. Second question first. There are a lot of things that have been done and made in the past which you couldn't get done or made today.
Right.
My friends and I, movie makers, talk about Blazing Saddles.
Mm.
That movie is so non-PC.
Yeah, absolutely.
It wouldn't even be made.
Right.
It would not make Blazing Saddles.
Right.
So I don't know. Something that was a long time ago. Would it work today? I don't know.
Right.
As far as for me personally, standing up and fighting the way I did was initially very detrimental to my band because I became the poster boy for all that was wrong with rock and roll. I was used as the poster boy, and the fact of the matter was, Twisted Sister was not that bad.
Right.
We were not like Motley Crue.
Right.
We were not sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But parents just came to know that band Twisted Sister,
right,
and became a thing where your kid wasn't allowed to see
right,
Twisted Sister.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it hurt us in the short run. And a lot of that, there's always saying, "Oh, those stickers help music."
Mm-hmm.
It did and it didn't, because one of my big concerns was that stores would use the stickers as a way to segregate albums and keep music from people.
Right.
So there were a lot of stores that wouldn't even carry albums with stickers on them.
Right.
So if you wanted to buy an album with a sticker and you can't get it at Walmart or Best Buy, then how are you supposed to get it?
Right.
You had to hunt for the record. So yeah, it brought attention to it, but there was literally stores that were refusing to rack or carry albums with stickers, and that wasn't good for business.
Right. Sure. True. Yeah, that's understandable. I didn't think about it like that, but you make a good point. D, listen, thanks so much, my friend. I know you got to run, but thank you for giving us so much of your time and chatting with us here. I wish you the best, continued success, and be safe down there in Belize. Safe travels when you're able to come back to the country, and continued health for you, your wife, your kids, and your grandkids. Thanks, my friend, for coming on.
Thank you, everybody out there. And just remember one thing. Whatever, I don't want to say this, there's a lot of people on different sides of the coin. Is this real? Is this fake? Is this, was it man-made? Was it nature-made? Is it been released on us? Is it this? Is it that? People are dying.
Yep.
A lot of people are dying, and a lot of people get very sick. My family lives in New York.
Yep.
My brother sells caskets. He says, and he's a righty, and he says, I sell twice as many caskets in 10 days as I'll sell in a month.
Oh, man.
So people are dying. Whatever it is, people are dying. So be safe, and then we can argue about later on where it came from and who's responsible for it. But right now, we just got to take care of our own. End of story. Okay?
Thanks for hanging. Be good.
Pleasure, man. Bye-bye.
All right, very cool. What a nice guy for giving us a few minutes of his time while he is in Belize. We hope that he can get back here safe and sound with his wife to the rest of his family in New York City. And as we go to break, why don't we go ahead and play Dee Snider's new single, Prove Me Wrong. It's coming off of his new solo CD DVD set for the Love of Metal Live. And when you listen to this, you would never guess that this guy is 65 years old. I can't keep up with this guy, and I'm 43, and he puts me to shame. This is a kickin' tune. It's Dee Snider, frontman from Twisted Sister. Prove Me Wrong. We'll be right back after this 92.1 The Team.
I
And now a word from the PKA Drake Agency. Are you having financial hardship as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and are unable to pay premiums that are due? Your insurance company can assist you by suspending cancellation for non-payment and allowing you to pay the premium over a 12-month period. If your premiums are financed, you will be given 60 days to make your payment before cancellation of the policy is requested by the finance company. This also applies if you are a small business, that is, any business that is resident in this state, is independently owned and operated, and employs 100 or fewer individuals. In order to take advantage of these extensions, the insurer or finance company will need from you a written statement that you are having financial hardship as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. A recent executive order issued by Governor Andrew Cuomo set forth the details that insurers must abide by in implementing the premium relief that has been mandated for policyholders who are financially impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. If you have any questions about this premium payment assistance or need help with the process, please do not hesitate to email Lori Drake at this email address, ldrake@pkadrakeagency.com.
Welcome back to the Joel Oriend Show.
Break a one. Might be crazy, but I ain't dumb. Crazy cootie coming at you. Anybody home?
On 92.1 The Team.
Alrighty, excited to have on the show. He's now, I guess you could say, a TV star. You've seen him on ESPN with the docuseries The Last Dance, which is chronicling the Chicago Bulls dynasty in the 90s. He played for Digger Phelps at Notre Dame, then transferred to play for the Hall of Famer Eddie Sutton at Arkansas. He was the 6th overall draft pick in the 1985 draft by the Sacramento Kings. He played for 15 years in the league, 965 games, averaged 4.8 points and 4 rebounds per game. He 45% from the field, 79% from the line. Played for the Kings, Celtics, Suns, Lakers, Nets, Bulls, and Trailblazers. Well, rather than me introducing him, why don't we get the assistance of a professional and Ray Clay?
Center, 7 foot from Arkansas, Joe Klein.
Let's bring him on, a member of the world champion Chicago Bulls. It's Joe Klein. Joe, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, well, let's get right to the first controversy. Forget Pizzagate and Flugate. I have from Wikipedia, you're 6'11". Ray Clay just said you're 7 foot. Which one is it, Mr. Klein?
Well, with a voice like Ray's, I'll have to defer to him. He's got the music and the lights, and so I thought I was 6'11", but if he says I'm 7 feet, I'm not going to argue with him.
Well, let's go back to your high school days. You probably had a growth spurt someplace along the line in high school, which probably made the basketball coach extremely interested in you. You then go to Notre Dame and play for Digger Phelps. You transfer to play for Eddie Sutton at Arkansas. Both of those programs made it to the Final Four in the mid-'70s, so I can see why you would be attracted to both of those programs. Talk to me about your high school days, why Notre Dame, and then why the transfer to Arkansas.
Well, I mean, I came from a very small town, Slater, Missouri, and so, you played all sports. You did everything because it gave you something to do. If you weren't, working on somebody's farm or cutting grass or whatever, you were playing sports, and you didn't have the organized sports. I mean, it was mostly sandlot stuff, sandlot football. Baseball was pretty much the only real organized thing for young kids. So you pretty much waited till high school to do everything else. And so, I played everything my first couple of years in high school, but then, started growing and having some success in basketball, and they didn't think it'd be wise to keep playing football and do other things, so I kind of backed off that stuff. Being recruited, back then it was so different. Nothing really, they would send you questionnaires. All these colleges would send you questionnaires in the mail, and you would fill them out and send them back with your grade point average and your, high school guidance counselor's contact number, which was my mom. So, they would do their checkup work like that, and nothing really happened from a face-to-face standpoint till going into your senior year, kind of the summer before, and that was the first year that I ever heard about or played AAU basketball. I'd never heard of it till then, so that was really the only summer I ever was, I guess, quote-unquote, out on the circuit. Went to some basketball camps we'd always go to Missouri's basketball camp in the summer for a week, and then I would, one summer after my sophomore year, I think, or going into my sophomore year, I went to Notre Dame's camp. Notre Dame was special to us. We were Catholic family, devout Catholic family. And so I always joke when Kansas and Arkansas, Missouri and Kentucky and those guys came for an in-home visit, Mom had cold cuts, chips, sodas. Digger Phelps came, and everybody congregated over at my grandma's house, which was right behind us, and we had, roast. They made a roast. They had mashed potatoes. We got green beans, gravy, and grandma's apple pie. And then they would look at me. They'd look at me and go, "No, you go wherever you want to go. It's your decision." I'm like, "Okay, I got to see how this is going." But I was very glad I went to Notre Dame. I love that school. It's a special place. It was very, very, very hard to leave, but it was something I felt I needed to do, and I'm very glad that I left, but still have tremendous feelings and great respect for the University of Notre Dame.
So you transfer to Arkansas. You're there from 82 to 85. You start 67 out of 97 games. You average over 35 minutes. You shoot 59% from the field, 72% from the line. You average 18 points and 8 rebounds per game. Your senior year, 22 points and 8 rebounds. You played with some great guys there. You played with Darrell Walker, Alvin Robertson, Byron Irving, and Andrew Lang. They all went to the league like you did. During your time there, the Razorbacks went 73-24. You had very good teams. Your first year there, you lose to Louisville in the tournament in the semifinals in a heartbreaker, 65-63. Next year is a 2 seed. You lose to Virginia in the second round, and then your senior year, you lose to St. John's again in the tournament, 68-65. You play for a college basketball Hall of Famer, Eddie Sutton. He's 11th all time with 806 wins. Talk to me about your time at Arkansas.
Oh, yeah, just love it. Couldn't have gone to a better place, to a better school, to a better state, or played for a better coach. So grateful that he finally got his just due and being inducted to the Hall of Fame this year. Way past due, but very grateful that he got in, and wouldn't have been able to do any of this basketball accomplishments without him. He was he's like a father to me. Just love him dearly, and just, again, without his help, I don't think I would have been half the basketball player I was able to turn out to be, and got to play, like you said, with Alvin and Darrell. And that Louisville game, we were, those games that you lose in the NCAA tournament, they stick with you for the rest of your life. I mean, we were killing Louisville, and we ran out of gas. Scooter McCray tipped it in at the buzzer, and I remember to this day I had my finger on the ball trying to knock it out to half court and couldn't get my finger on it. I can still feel it to this day. I mean, I just couldn't get enough of the ball. And then my second year, we were playing Virginia, and we had a really good team, and we're up 1 late in the game, and Othell Wilson goes up for a shot at the free throw line, and Alvin Robertson blocks it, and the ball goes right to Rick Carlisle like a bounce pass. I mean, it couldn't have been a better. It was like Alvin caught the ball and threw it to him. He swatted Othell Wilson's shot, went right to Rick Carlisle, and he knocked it down, and we lost at the buzzer. And then my last year we had St. John's beat, and we had a kid with a breakaway dunk late in the game, and he tried to do a lock the cradle behind the head instead of just. And he bounces the ball off the back of the rim, and it goes to half court right to Chris Mullen, and takes 2 dribbles and pulls up and knocks down a shot. And that was a decided basket in that game. So those games are always, there's only one winner in the NCAA, and everybody else has those kind of memories that I have. Just, a lot of heartbreak, but, man, it was a lot of fun playing in those games.
Yep, so you won a gold medal as a member of the United States men's basketball team at the '84 Summer Olympics, and you also won an NBA championship as a member of the Chicago Bulls in 1998. Which one was more meaningful to you, if one had more meaning than the other, that is, the NBA championship or the Olympic gold medal?
Well, I think when you're younger and when you're in the hunt for the ring, it's everybody's trying to get to that ring, and you're moving your family around and taking pay cuts and join a team like Chicago, and when you win that ring, it's the greatest. But over time, when you sit back and think about having an Olympic gold medal, they don't give those out every year. Those are once in a 4-year span, a lot of times once in a career span. And so, especially back when it had to be amateurs to play in it, I mean, you pretty much you got one shot at it, and you better make it stick. And making the team, and then seeing how people react, like when, every now and then go to a school or something and show the kids my ring and my gold medal. When they see the gold medal, it's gold plated, so it's not like this shiny. The first thing they kind of look at is the gold. I've had to have it recovered a couple times, and they kind of look at it and kind of go, really? But it's lead with a gold plate on it. It's not solid gold, so that kind of throws everybody off. But it's still, they look at it, and it's pretty special. So I would have to say now, my gold medal is probably more, that I, not by much, but if I had to choose, that's what I would do.
On the phone with us, Joe Klein, a 15-year NBA vet. He played with a lot of great players, some of the greatest of all time, and we'll get into that. He was part of the docu-series on ESPN, The Last Dance. So as I mentioned, you were drafted 6th overall by the Sacramento Kings in 1985. You then go to the Celtics from 88 to 93. Is that dynasty was kind of winding down? You played with Bird, Dennis Johnson, McHale, Parrish. It was just a loaded team, but it was when some other teams started to really make their run at it. You guys lost to the Knicks, Pistons, Cavs, and Hornets in the playoffs. Talk to me about your time with the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, and we were as good as any of those teams when we were healthy. Yeah. But that was the thing, we couldn't stay healthy. Larry couldn't stay healthy, and Kevin had ankle problems, and so we were a lot of times trying to piece it together. And those teams, the Cavs, the Pistons, the Hornets, the Knicks, they were younger, more vibrant, and they were on the rise. Their superstars were really crescendoing and reaching their peak as pro athletes, and we fought them hard, and we took them to the brink, all of them, but we just didn't have enough to get over that hump and get where we needed to be. And so it's such a fine line when you're playing against great teams and great opponents that you have to be at the top of your game. The way you play, you have to be at the top of the game with your health. You have to have everything going in the right direction when you get to the playoffs. And unfortunately, we just could never, kind of go into the playoffs 100% and against those great teams.
So you go out to the desert after Boston and you play with a very good Phoenix Suns squad. You play with guys like Danny Ainge, Sir Charles Barkley, Kevin Johnson, A.C. Green, Dan Marley. You're a starter. You're getting tons of minutes with the Suns. 94, 95, you guys were one of the best teams in the league. You just so happened to run into a buzzsaw, another mini dynasty at the time, the Houston Rockets, who went on to win the NBA championship in 94 and 95. Talk to me about your time with the Suns.
Yeah, I mean, great team, Houston. We had a great team, and those are probably, in my NBA career, probably two of the most devastating series that we lost because we were the better team, in my opinion. We had them down We won the first in a 7-game series. I think in '94 we won the first 2 games in Houston and had 3 of the next 5 in Phoenix and had to win 2. And so to move on to the finals, to the Western Conference Finals, and then we blew that. And then the next year we had them down 3-1, lost 3 in a row, and lost Game 7 at home to go to the conference finals. So had great teams, but once again, it's kind of like that NCAA tournament. We couldn't, they played great. They had, in my opinion, as good a center that's ever played in the NBA in Olajuwon. And he was at his peak, and they had great role players around him that could really, shoot the ball. And they had Clyde Drexler and Otis Thorpe, and they had some really good other pieces. But, they surrounded him with shooters, and, he could just, if you had to start double teaming him and those guys started making shots, it became very difficult, and that's what happened. And again, hats off to them. They beat us. Everybody, I heard Reggie Miller on The Last Dance talking about how he thought the Pacers were the best team, and they were a great team, but you lost. And so I feel the same way. I felt we were better than Houston. We should have beat Houston. We had them down. We had them up against the ropes, but we didn't knock them out. And so we're not the best team. But those 2 losses were as bad a losses as I've ever had.
So you had to go up against some Hall of Fame and great centers, whether it be in practice as teammates or in a game. Guys like Rick Smits from the Indiana Pacers, Mark Eaton from the Utah Jazz, Shaquille O'Neal from the Lakers, Robert Parrish with the Celtics, Patrick Ewing, and as you just mentioned, Hakeem Olajuwon. So you believe Hakeem the Dream was the greatest center you ever had to play against?
Well, like I said, Olajuwon was, I had him in college, and I had him in the pros, and I tell my wife I wake up in the middle of the night thinking he's still standing behind me. So I wake up in a cold sweat thinking he's in the room. So I have to give it to him. But I'll tell you another guy.
Yep.
Shaq was just the strength of Shaq, the size of Shaq, and the agility of Shaq, and then trying to guard him in the low post. I mean, it was like trying to guard a mountain that could move like a deer. I mean, it was just, see him coming down the court, knowing he was going to get the ball and you were guarding him was not a good feeling.
I bet there's no doubt about it. You have certainly had to play against and play with some great guys. So the next team you go to and some of your teammates, not too shabby either. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Steve Kerr. You've worked hard. You're getting towards the end of your career now. You're 36. It must have been extremely rewarding to be able to be on such a great team and to finally get that elusive ring for you and surrounded by a great cast.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was, like you said, I was going into my 13th year, so I was getting to the end and feeling it was just hard to practice and be at your peak every day. And I mean, I knew going into that team that I was pretty much there for insurance purposes for Luke Longley and Bill Wennington. And so, that was my role. I knew that was my role going in. I knew it'd be tough to get playing time, but, I accepted that role and got to play in around 50 games and just enjoyed the great experience and got to, be with Michael again. We were with each other in '84 on the Olympics, but, just being around him and watching the circus that followed him everywhere he went and the intensity that everybody came at him with every night, and for him, to be able to respond like he did every night with all the stuff flying around the team, things like that just was amazing to me. Again, with the Celtics, we could never keep Larry and Kevin and those guys healthy. And I think once Scottie came back in January, Michael, that's one of the most remarkable things to me when I look at Michael's career is that except for that 1 year, his second year when he broke his foot, but he still came back to the playoffs. Just amazing to me how he answered the bell every night. I mean, just every night he answered the bell and stayed healthy and worked out. And I think that's something that people don't dwell on as much as they should. The fact that, this guy played there was no load management thing going on then. I mean, he brought it every night. That's why the Bulls were such a great team, is because their greatest player, maybe the greatest player of all time, answered the bell every night and led the team in pretty much every category. And that's why, MJ's MJ. That's why they just did a 10-part documentary on him.
Sure.
I mean, he was amazing. It was amazing.
So the year before you got there, it was the flu game or the food poisoning game. Some are now calling it the altitude sickness game, where he was very sick in Utah, Salt Lake, but he plays and the Bulls win. Even the next year on the 98 team, was there a lot of talk? Did you guys talk about that game and how sick he was in his performance? Did a lot of the guys from the 97 team talk to you about that?
We talked about it.
Sure.
A lot, and I asked questions about it a lot. And it was, you could tell the guys on the team were like, "Yeah, it was bizarre." I mean, and it was. I was like, was he really sick, or was this? And they're like, "No, man, he was dying before the game and during the. I mean, and I don't know that. Somebody told me it was a seafood pizza.
Okay.
And so, late night seafood pizza in Park City, Utah. You order that and brace yourself.
That's an interesting choice. I'll give the GOAT that. There's no doubt about that. So we've talked about some of your teammates you've played with: Bird, Barkley, Jordan, Kobe, Shaq. Would you say Jordan is the most competitive out of all those guys?
Yeah, I mean, Bird and he had a lot of similarities. I mean, they were, they took things. Everything was very personal. Practice, shooting games, card games. If you played horse with them, shot free throws with them, there was always a competition.
Right.
There was always a personal challenge for them, and so they were very driven and very competitive in everything. And it was like, I'm that way, but even I would sit there and kind of go, lighten up, man. Good grief. But again, that they had great talent, but the greatest talent they had was their drive and their work ethic. And both those guys, they never asked any teammate to do anything that they weren't already doing or have done. Right. And so I think that's what made them such great leaders, is that while they were difficult and could be hard to get along with, they were competitive with everybody and everything.
Sure.
They walked the walk.
Yep.
And so that was the ultimate respect I liked. They weren't telling you to do it while they were sitting on the sidelines. They were out there with you trying to get to do it better.
Right. No doubt about it. Did you ever block Jordan in practice? Did you ever do that, or did you ever say, I could block this, but I'm going to let him have this layup?
Oh yeah. Oh no, I would do that all the time, and then he would chastise you for being soft.
Right.
Bill Lambier is not going to let me go. You're going to just let guys, and I'm like thinking to myself, I'm not going to challenge Scott Pippen and Michael or Dennis or Ron Harper and end up getting one of those guys hurt.
Right.
But after a while, just constantly nagging you. So one day he went in there, and I went up to block his shot and knocked him down, not on purpose. But,
right.
So, of course, he pops up and wants to fight. And you're like looking at him like, dude, for 2-3 weeks you've been telling me how soft I am, What do you want? What do you want me to do? I'll do whatever you want me to do. But it's like, I just remember looking at him going, you're crazy, and just kind of walked away. Again, that's him. Right. That's what made him great. And I respected that. I didn't have a problem with it. Yeah. Some guys did, but
right.
I liked it, so it didn't bother me.
So we talked about all the greats you played with. You also played with some of the great hotheads and personalities and fighters of all time. As we mentioned, you played with the Worm, Dennis Rodman. You played with Rasheed Wallace and Jermaine O'Neal up in Portland. But some say those guys were the best teammates they ever had.
No, really. All them guys are kind of like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't what you saw on the court. I mean, Rasheed Wallace, I lockered right next to him. He was a great, I mean, I've talked to him, I talked to him during this year because he was a Kansas City Chiefs fan as I was.
Oh.
And so I don't know how he became a Chiefs fan growing up in Philadelphia. I think he grew up around Philadelphia or somewhere, but it then goes down to North Carolina. And, but he was a Chiefs fan. So, this year when the Chiefs are winning, he and I are texting and having a good, fun conversation. Great guy. And he was that way at Portland, but then he would get out there on the court, he would lose his mind.
Right.
So he just, Dennis was kind of the same way. I mean, this great guy off the floor, great guy in the locker room, no problems, practicing, and just a great teammate, but just flipped that switch when they got on the floor. And so, again, a lot of that is what made them the special players that they were.
On the phone with us, Joe Klein, 15-year vet of the NBA, played with the Celtics, the Suns, the Lakers, and won a world championship with the Chicago Bulls in 1998. You can follow him on Twitter at Slater Mojo. And now in your post-playing career, you have a great and very successful restaurant, Corky's Barbecue and Ribs. And I'm not sure how things are going down there. My guess is that this whole COVID-19 and isolation and shelter in place thing has probably hurt you guys a little bit. Are you still doing the takeout?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a weird time. We, fortunately, here in Arkansas, as of right now, we haven't had as near a type of situation as people in New York and other places, and so we've been very lucky from that aspect. So we have a drive-through, so our drive-through's been really hopping, and we've been able to do some deliveries, but caterings and all that stuff as everywhere else have been. Right. Been mixed and shut down, but we're holding our own. We're doing good. We've been able to keep some people employed, and that's been really a good feeling. And we're doing okay. I mean, like we're down, but I would bet 95% of the restaurants in our area would love to have our problems. So we're counting our blessings.
No doubt about it. I know you've dabbled in coaching a little bit. Is that something you want to do down the road, or right now is it just kind of concentrating on the family and the business?
Yeah, I mean, I always had a inkling or scratch that I wanted to itch, but coming out of the NBA, I had opportunities to go in the NBA and coach. Towards the end of my career, I had just moved my family from here to here to here to here to here and been away. I wanted to get away from that and knew that if you coach in the NBA, that's your life. You're hired to be fired. And so I just didn't really want to do that. I got the opportunity here in Little Rock to coach at UALR with a good friend of mine, Steve Shields, and got to do that for 8 years. And we had some really good teams and had a really good run. Got this, again, the reason why I was able to do it and wanted to do it is that I didn't have to move. Right. And so we got let go in 2015 and I had a good 8-year run. And then, again, had opportunities. If I wanted to, I could have gone to some colleges and coached or got back in the NBA, but I didn't want, I had to move, and I didn't want to move. Yeah. And so been able to coach, volunteer at my son's high school here, and that's really kind of helped me keep that going, and been able to do some SEC network games on TV this past year, which I really enjoyed and hope to do some more of, and think that helps me stay involved in basketball and scratches that itch that I really like.
I want to ask you about Phil Jackson. I didn't get a chance to ask any of the former Bulls we've had on what it was like playing for Phil Jackson. He did seem like he was a player's coach, but he could also push your buttons if he wanted to. He certainly would motivate in different ways. He didn't mind trying to get you riled up if he thought that was going to get you to play harder and a little more angry and make you a little more motivated. Did you like playing for Phil, or did you get a little frustrated sometimes how he would talk in riddles? And try to be so intellectual sometimes as the Zen master.
No, I mean, I loved playing for Phil. I mean, Phil was really intellectually, he would challenge you intellectually, which I really liked, and he had a good sense of humor. He was very consistent with his emotions and how he coached the team. When things weren't going bad, he didn't lose his. When things were going bad, he didn't lose his mind, and when things were going great, he wasn't euphoric. Right. He was very consistent. Had his mind on the end prize and how do we get there? What's the best way to do it? Was very interested in his players and their families, and I enjoyed being around him. He's a good dude, and he's a caring dude, and he handled that team, which was very difficult to do, masterfully, and with all the stuff that was going around on the periphery, right? He kept everything really good in the locker room, which was very hard to do.
So we touched a little bit about your teammates earlier, and you played with many talented guys: MJ, Barkley, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, and I'm sure a lot of other great guys that I didn't mention. But when you look back on your career, which teammate of yours do you have the fondest memories of?
Good friends with Eddie Pinkney and Dan Marley.
Oh.
I mean, Eddie and I got traded together to Boston, and so we were kind of growing up and going through it everywhere together. And Dan Marley and I connected really good when we were in Phoenix, and just those two guys are probably the two best and closest friends. I really enjoyed Larry. Larry and I are both from small towns, and Charles is a hoot. I mean, I love Charles, and talking with him to this day, he's probably the most approachable, down-to-earth superstar that I was ever around. Right. And he's just like what you see on TV. There's nothing phony. He's crazy and dumb on TV, and he's crazy and dumb in person. You get what you get. I say that lovingly and affectionately.
That's right. Listen, Joe, continued success. Stay healthy. It was great chatting with you, Joe, and maybe we'll catch up again. Congratulations on the championship and the post-career success. Thanks so much for giving us so much of your time.
You're welcome, guys. Have a great day. Stay safe.
All righty. There you go. You can follow him on Twitter at SlaterMoJoe. Joe Klein right there. Tanner, before we get on out of here, why don't you go ahead and ask that trivia question one more time?
All right. Which Super Bowl winning NFL head coach was once Doug Flutie's quarterbacks coach at Boston College? And I'm feeling a little generous today, so I will give you a hint. He was the quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator at his and your alma mater, Syracuse, from 1974 to 1980, before he took the quarterbacks coach job at Boston College.
Not Tom Coughlin, is it?
Well, it actually is Tom Coughlin.
Nice.
After spending time as the quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator at Syracuse, your guys' alma mater, he went on to be the quarterbacks coach for Boston College for Flutie's first 3 seasons from 1981 to 1983.
There you go. That helped me. I would not have got that if you had not given me that hint, because I knew Coughlin was the head coach at some point at BC, but I didn't know when that was in relation to Flutie or whatnot. So there you go. All right. Little SU connection. Man, I wish I had known the answer to that question before, or I could have, we could have asked him about that. Maybe next time. Why don't you go ahead and give us today in sports history?
Today in 1927, MLB pitcher Walter Johnson recorded his 113th and final shutout of his career. In 1935, Babe Ruth went hitless for the Braves against the Phillies in what would be the final game of his career. In 1948, Schenectady Blue Jay Tommy Lasorda authored 25 strikeouts in a 15-inning game. In 1951, Ezzard Charles beat Joey Maxim in 15 for the heavyweight boxing title. In 1956, Mickey Mantle missed, hitting the first home run out of Yankee Stadium by a mere 18 inches. In 1967, Yankee Whitey Ford, nearing 41, announced his retirement from baseball. In 1971, Willie Mays hit his 638th home runs and also set an NL record of 1,950 runs scored. In 1985, in the Stanley Cup final at Northlands Coliseum in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, The Edmonton Oilers took back-to-back titles by beating the Philadelphia Flyers 8-3 for a 4-1 series victory. Wayne Gretzky and Harry Curry each posted a goal and 3 assists. In 1986, Barry Bonds made his MLB debut for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And in 1987, Mike Tyson TKO'd Pinklin Thomas in 6 for the heavyweight boxing title. Taking a look at birthdays today, born in 1943, a college and pro football Hall of Fame halfback, formerly of the Chicago Bears, a four-time Pro Bowler, also the youngest player to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Throwback to the first ever Tanner's Trivia question on this show. Born in Wichita, Kansas, it's the Kansas Comet, Gale Sayers. Born in 1949 from Scranton, Pennsylvania, former basketball coach P.J. Carlissimo. Born in 1955 was wrestler Jake the Snake Roberts. Born in 1965 from Rockville Center, New York, he was the head coach of the Florida Gators men's basketball squads that won back-to-back NCAA championships in 2006 and 2007, and he has been the head coach of the OKC Thunder since 2015. It is Billy Donovan. Born in 1966, a former Virginia State champion volleyball and basketball player in high school, and the mother of Stephen and Seth Curry, it is Sonia Curry. Born in 1992, a former NBA champion with the Golden State Warriors in 2015, now plays for the Sacramento Kings, Harrison Barnes. And also born on this day in 1992, a former NCAA champion at the University of Connecticut, was famously a focal point of the trade that sent James Harden from the OKC Thunder to the Houston Rockets. He was averaging a solid 12.5 points per game this season for the Indiana Pacers before suffering a season-ending torn left ACL. Jeremy Lamb, and that does it for today in sports history.
All right, Tanner, thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and try to stay cool, okay?
All right, thanks. You do the same.
All right, that's it for us, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. If you missed any part of the show, you can go back and catch it, 921theteam.com. Be good. If not, have fun trying. We'll catch you on the flip side. I'm going.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's broadcast. Thank you for listening to my son, because without you listening, he would still be living at home.
And that's all, folks.